Now to those blockbuster allegations that Trump insiders had contact with Russian intelligence officials during the presidential campaign. ABC Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross is here with a look at how Russians try to gain influence in the U.S. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, George. The Trump White House continues to dispute reports that any of the president's associates were in contact with the Russians during the campaign. But there's no dispute the Russians themselves have been making great efforts to get close to Trump and the people around him, whether the targets knew it or not. It's every Russian spy's greatest dream to have an asset, a source inside the White House or any place of power in Washington.
They always targeted political figures. They wanted to know who's a mover and shaker in our society, who affects it.
And as portrayed in the TV program The Americans, for the Russians, all is fair in love and espionage.
I'm in charge of FBI counterintelligence, and my secretary married a KGB officer.
U.S. intelligence officials describe a massive effort by Russian spies to infiltrate and disrupt American politics, including the use of what are called cutouts and fronts, people and organizations that would not appear to be part of Russian intelligence.
This is a theory of war, a 21st century theory of war that includes false information, that includes cyber hacking, that includes, in effect, sowing chaos.
Senator Mark Warner is the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is investigating the Russian efforts to meddle in the election and whether anyone in the Trump campaign was involved.
I think this investigation is maybe the most serious thing that I'll ever take on in my public career.
When General Michael Flynn was in Moscow in December 2015, invited to sit next to Russian President Vladimir Putin, he was about to become the senior foreign policy advisor for Donald Trump. Now the question for Senate investigators and the FBI is why the Russians courted the general, who was fired this week, and whether they were trying to exploit him, even if he did not realize it.
If by his actions, implied or implicit, there was an effort to undermine American foreign policy, that bothers me a great deal.
Also under scrutiny, another former Trump foreign policy advisor, Carter Page, who claims he's done major business deals with Russians and defends its leaders, raising the eyebrows of American intelligence officials. Would you agree that Vladimir Putin is a thug, as some have called him?
You know, I thoroughly disagree.
Page is named as a central figure in the now infamous dossier of unsubstantiated allegations about the Trump campaign and the Russians being in cahoots. Page told ABC News the allegations are ridiculous. Is it absolutely false?
Completely false and laughable.
And this former Trump campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who once worked for pro-Russian politicians in Ukraine. He, too, denies knowingly talking with anyone in Russian intelligence during the campaign, telling ABC News, how am I supposed to know who's a Russian spy, George?
Yeah, the key word there is knowingly.
Right.
So what else are investigators doing now to try to figure out what happened in this campaign?
Well, there are also questions about finances and Mr. Trump himself. Their doubts remain as long as he has refused to release his income tax returns, and that is one of the big questions for investigators.
Okay, Brian Ross, thanks very much.